Devils, and welcome to another episode of Pro Hockey Pod, episode 80. We're almost at 100. I want to get there, and then we'll see where it goes. Happy to almost be there. But this week, right back to the coaches series as always. I'm running along with these right now. I think they've been great. Had a lot of great feedback, and I think they're very beneficial for the listeners out there to see that there's multiple paths out there in the sport of hockey, this great game that we love. And this week's no different. So, funny enough, I reached out to this guy through email. Got a reply, and then I looked him up and saw that we actually played against each other in college. So this is funny. We've been kind of giving each other some banter off camera here about the glory days. He went to SUNY Geneseo. I went to SUNY Oswego. So we had some rivalry games, definitely some sold out barns. We'll have to get into the topic of who had the better fans. Not sure he'll win that one, but we'll see. But anyways, he has gotten into coaching himself. He's on the women's side, been at Colgate University for some time now. Happy to have him on and, pick his brain on some things about playing at Geneseo and also coaching on the women's side. Welcome to the Pro Hockey Pod, Stefan Decosse.
Yes, Andrew, thanks so much. Pleasure to be on here. I'm excited to dig into it a little bit and to go back into the glory years of the SUNYAC. What a conference, great barns, good competition, a lot of fun. But hey, congrats to you, almost 100 episodes. That's legit. And a great service that you're providing, to whether it's parents or prospective athletes, hockey players that want to continue in this beautiful game. Because you're right, like everyone's got their path. Everyone sniffs it out and finds their way to where they end up being, and it's so important to showcase those diverse trajectories. So I think that's fantastic, man. I'm excited to dive in here.
Well, first, thank you. Appreciate the nice words. That's rare on this podcast. The guest gets a tribute at the start, but yeah, so always I like to start off just kind of going back to your childhood there. Just kind of going off like elite prospects and everything. It says you were born in North Vancouver, British Columbia there. What a great province that is. I myself from Ontario, but what's kind of like your earliest maybe childhood memory or something that you cherished as a kid growing up there?
Yeah, great question. I got the goosebumps. That's a great question. I think that the first memory as it relates to hockey has to be my dad coming home in the morning after waiting in line through the night to ensure that I'd get in to be registered at North Van Minor Hockey. I remember that so clearly. It was right before school. He's like, Steph, you're in. It was such a waiting list that he hung out over the course of the night. He's like, hey, you're registered. And I was fired up. And I remember that so clearly. And I think in parallel to that, being from North Vancouver, 1994 was a really important summer for us. The Canucks made it to the Stanley Cup, but I remember Game 7 against the Flames, and Robson was making the call, and a play to Burry at the line. He's in all alone. Game 7 in Calgary, he buries it, and Burry was my hero as a young boy, and I remember that my friends, the Blackmores, were over there, my neighbors. We were playing knee hockey, of course, and fired up. We had rug burn on our knees, but we were fired up when the Canucks won, and then they went on to play in the Stanley Cup and lost in Game 7. Lafayette hit the post off of a face-off. Would have made all the difference, and Burry missed a penalty shot on Richter, who was a stud. So that was highly influential in my early upbringing as a hockey player, and it sort of propelled my love for the game from there. But those are three memories that jump out. Unfortunately, there was a riot after that game, much like there was in 2011. I don't know what it is about us West Coasters, but we get hot. Yeah.
You're so far west out there. It must be a little hotter out there. But no, that's a great memory. Honestly, I remember that run. Obviously, us being Canadians, it's anytime any Canadian team can make a run, you normally end up jumping on the bandwagon if you don't want to. Myself, I'm obviously a Leafs guy, so you can.
I'm just gonna say, unless it's the Leafs, but
yeah,
yeah,
unless it's
we'll
them. I mean, no one jumps on them. But even when they lost that during that COVID year to Montreal, and Montreal was going to the finals, like you do, as much as I don't like Montreal, I'm still hoping, like bring the cup back to Canada. The Canucks been an interesting offseason, I would say, this year. Couple quotes coming out there. So
it's a zoo.
It's a zoo. What was your minor hockey path like out there? Like, was it similar to like me growing up, where you have at every level you have back then it was called AAA, AA, single A. Now I think it's called like U18, U16, all that.
Yeah. 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 So I grew up, I played all my minor hockey in North End Minor Hockey Association. There wasn't too much People weren't moving around too much. You played where you were born back then. So Tyke all the way up through midget, North Van minor. And I had I was kind of an early bloomer. I was one of those whiz kids ripping around but for whatever reason, by the time we got to Pee Wee, I was playing B hockey. I played Pee Wee B hockey for 2 years, then Bantam B hockey, and then midget B hockey. So that's about 4 or 5 years in a row where I was playing B hockey, and then started to kind of take off. I was 4'11" in grade 8. I was a late bloomer physically. And then I played midget AAA in grade 10 or grade 11, and then junior B with the Richmond Sockeyes with the great Ron Johnson for a year there. And then I went off to Beaver Valley in the KIJHL. It was the last cut of the Trail Smoke Eaters of the BCHL, and decided to stay local and affiliate with Trail and just have an incredibly informative and powerful experience in Beaver Valley with Terry Jones, Paul Matitucci, Hank Deadmarsh and company, and then 2 years in Trail, and then off to Geneseo. Minor hockey was such a great time. Rink right down the right down the road. Played with the same group of guys. It was awesome. It was quite different than it is today with all the mobility amongst the players and the families. But it was just such an incredible experience, and I had great young coaches that certainly fueled the fire for me from a motivational standpoint. I loved the game of hockey. I was obsessed with it, and I had coaches that were passionate and excited, and they were young, and it was fun. So really great memories of playing my minor hockey at the old Lonsdale Rec or KMA, Karen Magnuson there. Just really fun memories for sure.
Before we jump into the BCHL days, you mentioned obviously played there before going to Geneseo, but I'm always curious. I think obviously now I know hearing your backstory, like the reason, and I obviously had a buddy who was kind of similar, like hadn't quite grown yet at the ages when you're supposed to be getting drafted and stuff. But you growing up in North Van there, had you ever thought of the WHL route? Like obviously, as you know, us growing up as kids, like me, it was the OHL. Like that's the first thing we know because those guys look like NHLers to us at some point. Like that's the leagues you want to play in. Like was it kind of similar for you?
Yeah, I remember having those conversations. My dad having those conversations with me. Hey, Steph, like you have the opportunity, I always leaned towards the NCAA route. Was the route that I leaned towards. My dad and my mom, they certainly influenced that, in me. But concurrently, I grew up. Paul Correa is from North Vancouver, so Paul, Steve, Martin, the Correa boys, they're from North Van. Dad was a high school gym teacher down the road at Argyle Secondary. And so they were a pretty big deal. And all three of them went to University of Maine. And Paul Correa won a national championship in 94 at the University of Maine with the great Jim Montgomery, was the captain of that team, actually. And so I remember getting a University of Maine t-shirt for Christmas. And they went undefeated that year. So it was like University of Maine, and at the bottom of the puck, it was their perfect record. And now my memory may be a little off. So if there's any fact checkers, maybe they lost a game or two. But you know how memory is, it's fallible. And so that played a big influence on me. And University of Maine was my dream school. It's where I wanted to go. And they were sick in the 90s. So there's no surprise there with Walsh's at the helm. And then and now, funny enough, we're going to University of Maine next year to play their women's team. So I've been dying to be in that barn, and we'll have that opportunity next fall. But it was always for me, it was certainly leaning towards the BCHL route. Now, when I didn't get drafted into the dub, which was not a surprise at all, but I remember so clearly on the WHL website, Andrew, it said Shane Doan and Jerome McGinley never got drafted in the dub. Don't worry about it. Like that. That's how I perceived it. So I'm like, the dream's alive. We're all set. The dream's alive. And I always viewed it that way. Like, hey, like that's all right. Jerome McGinley didn't get drafted. We're all set here. NCAA is what I lean towards more so than the WHL. But I wouldn't even say I was in that pool of players, frankly, to be considered.
But like you raised a good point there because even like as you said, like you were undersized at the time, hadn't grown
Yeah.
into your body, but there's still somewhere in the back of your head that's like, hey, maybe I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
get a chance. And like I think like I myself didn't get drafted either. And I remember being so heartbroken because I grew up idolizing the OHL, but I had like parents and friends coming to me being like, kind of like similar to you being like, there's other routes. Like just because you didn't get drafted OHL doesn't mean it's over. Because as a kid, you do kind of think like, oh no, it's done. But obviously for me and you, it wasn't. And you mentioned playing 3 years there in the BCHL, which for us when we were growing up, like you said off camera, I mean, I won't deny it. I think it was the best league with the best reputation as well as moving guys on to the next level in Canada. Like I think you would have the USHL in the States and then the BCHL in Canada, and everyone wanted to play there if they could. I had a chance actually to go to Vernon the one year they won, but I didn't. I ended up staying home, and it probably was good because their starter was Andrew Hammond. So I think he might have outdueled me there. But maybe talk about your three parts of 3 seasons there, playing in that league, playing in Trail, and just the kind of experience you had.
I loved it. I had such an incredible experience. Trail, British Columbia is located in the Kootenays. It's in southeastern British Columbia, right near the border of the United States, just north of Spokane-ish about. And what a community, what tradition, what a community. And so Trail, British Columbia was home to the Trail Smoke Eaters senior hockey team. And if they're called the Smoke Eaters because right behind the rink is a smelter with two smokestacks. And so the history, the hockey, Canadian hockey history that is alive and the pride within Trail is sensational. At the time, it was a publicly owned team. It was one of two publicly owned teams in the BCHL, Trail and Powell River. So a board of local community members ran the team. And so there was such pride in the program. And the reason being is that in 1939 and in 1961, the Trail Smoke Eaters won the World Championship for Canada at the Senior World Championship, IIHF, because back then the winner of the Senior National Championship would go on to represent Canada at the Worlds. And Trail won it twice, little town of Trail, British Columbia. And so just a beautiful rink, great community. They love their Smoke Eaters. They're very proud. Made such incredible relationships, and hockey matters there. Athletics matter there. And it was just a real powerful experience for me. Now, the BCHL is a great league. And I had the fortune of having two great coaches in Tim Keller and Jim Ingram. They were phenomenal. And our fans, we had the first, it was exciting for us because back then in 2006, we had the first Jumbotron in the BCHL. And like that was legit, like we felt like we're in the NHL. You get off, you're looking up at your replay, and like you felt you were Showtime. But another neat thing about Trail is that within that rink, they have a smaller sheet. So they have a 3-on-3 sheet in addition to the home ice. And for the guys that didn't go to college or weren't in high school, we had a little 3-on-3 tourney. So we had the team broken up, and over the course of the season, we had standings and everything. And we'd play in the mornings, and it was amazing. Like it was shinny hockey. It was a blast. Won the cup. I won the cup both years. I won the cup. I will say that. And it was just a lot of fun. Great group of guys, great community. And they treated us like gold, even back then, like we got free synergies, one pieces, which was a fairly big deal. You got everything you needed. You traveled nicely, stayed in hotels, got your meals. What a league. What an incredible league. That has left a legacy, within the Canadian hockey ecosystem for sure. So, I loved it. My billets were fantastic. Sandra and Chris Falla, bunch of beauties. They were out in Fruitville, which is about 15 minutes outside Trail. But just phenomenal people. And I lived with them for 3 years, and I actually only played 2 years in Trail. So I was a late bloomer. I was a 19-year-old rookie. And then I played my 2021 year there. But before that, I was in Beaver Valley as an affiliate in the Junior B League in the area. So great experience. Still in contact with a lot of those folks. So just a really, really great time.
It's always nice to hear like when communities like that, like how they are with their athletes, how they come around their sports teams, the athletics, and it just makes me laugh, man. Like I remember playing junior too, and like you're talking to me about like how you guys like had like 3-on-3 tourneys during the year, and guys probably went harder in that than they did in practice. You know what I mean? Because they wanted to win, and so those are
For
like
sure.
memories that you always you remember, and I'm happy that you can say on the podcast that you got the trophy the last 2 years. So you went out a champion. You entered the BCHL as a. We don't care about the league championship. We just care about the 3-on-3. So you went out back-to-back champion on the 3-on-3, which is awesome.
It's huge. It's huge.
How did you decide on Geneseo? Because obviously, like British
Yeah.
Columbia, very very far west, and then Geneseo is in state of New York, so east.
Yeah.
Kind of. I think Geneseo, like from Burlington, if I was to drive, would maybe be like 2.5 hours or so. Like it's not a bad drive for me, but for you, like that's a long drive or a plane ride. So how did you come to make the decision to attend SUNY Geneseo?
Yeah, yeah, like most players in the BCHL, I aspired to secure a Division 1 scholarship, and I had a couple of good years in the BCHL, and we're having various different conversations with team from the Atlantic Conference. There's about 4 or 5 teams that I was having conversations with, and good ones. But financially, we just weren't in a position to have to have to pay the hefty bill of American universities, and so Division 3. Then we drew our attention to Division 3 and Geneseo. So Steve Sankey, he was a family friend of mine and was at the Christmas party that I went to every Christmas. And unreal guy. Played in the BCHL, played for Merritt, me and Coquitlam and Merritt, I believe. And then he went off to play for Geneseo. So he was there 4 years. He was a two-time captain, and he was from North Van. And so we knew him. We knew him very well. And he's like, Steph, if you're not going D3, like this is where you want to be. This is the best spot. The academics are really they're robust. They're really good. And it is an unreal college environment. It's a small town. The college is the town. The rink's on campus. And we got the best fans in the SUNYAC. And so I went online and I went onto YouTube and I was checking it out and I was like, yeah, this looks pretty legit. And Steve Sanks was a guy who we knew very well, and he's a really smart, bright guy. And so I don't know what this says about me, but I was like, yeah, sign me up, I'm in. And so I never visited Geneseo. I don't know if I would suggest that to others watching this. But I knew Sanks, and we knew one another, and we were close, and he said it was the right hockey experience, right academic and social experience that he was looking for. And so I took I guess a leap of faith, and I committed to Geneseo, and hadn't seen Geneseo until I jumped on a plane and had my bags packed and was there for day one. That was the first time I saw Geneseo. So a bit of a untraditional way of selecting a college, but they were also successful. So they'd won the SUNYAC, 2 or 3 times in the previous 4 or 5 years or so. So that was the other factor, is that we were going to compete and we were going to play in big games. And then I arrived at Geneseo for the first time, was in August of 2008. And I was fairly quickly, I recognized that I may have made one of the best decisions of my life. It was a wonderful time, great guys. But yeah, that's kind of how I landed on Jenny. Credit to Chris Hears. He's still there to this day. They lost in this national semifinal. They've been a wagon now for the past 10 years. But and that same coaching staff's there. We were chatting. I was chatting with Hearsy when they were up in Utica for the Frozen Four about a month or so ago, and we were having some good laughs on that whole recruitment, how that went down. But yeah, super fortunate that it worked out. Certainly worked out in my favor.
Yeah, lots to dive in there. The fan thing, obviously, I told you off camera, like for us, like it was always nice going to away games because we always drew the other team's fans because they wanted to see if, their team could beat, like, and when I played at Oswego, like we were always in the whatever top of power ranking. So we had a class, before even I got there, where they 4 years to the national championship, Frozen Four, and 2 years when I was there to the final. So like, it was good to play those games. And I like, we talked about it off camera, like we had maybe the 3,000 sold out arena, but definitely had rowdy fans, and the band, the shirts off, you guys didn't have as many rules as we did at Oswego, that's for sure, with the fan section, but it was always fun. The games were always good. They were competitive. As you mentioned, they built such a program there. Like when I was there at school, I think you guys were always like middle of the pack, where now it's like every year, like they're a team that could compete for a national championship, which is great to see. And obviously the coach you mentioned has been there the whole time, and been through I guess the ups and downs. But yeah, so I want to talk about this because I talked about the camera with you, but like you guys were one of the first. This was back your senior year, I believe. For those listening, everyone remembers the first ever NHL 24/7. So it was Pittsburgh, Washington, playing the outdoor game, the 4 episodes. Like every hockey player was glued to their TV for those 4 weeks straight every Sunday when the episode came out. And I remember you guys replicated it. So it might not be as popular as the NHL one, but it's on YouTube. If anyone wants to see it, all you got to do is search Geneseo Hockey 24/7. There's 2 episodes on there. And one of the episodes is against us. So that was my junior year, your senior year game in Geneseo. I think we ended up winning maybe 5-1 or something, but it was the atmosphere was awesome. Seeing the in between periods, seeing the coach speak to the players and stuff. But like I said, what a cool thing for a D3 college team to do at this time when it was brand new. And we talked about it off camera. You can go into a little more detail about it, but that must have been a cool experience for you, like being a part of that and being one of the first teams to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and it was the brainchild of Corey Gershon and Nick Ryan. They kind of, if my memory serves me correctly, we were obsessed with that show. You mentioned it. It was the Pens and the Caps was the inaugural 24/7 for the NHL. And that's when the Pens had Flower and they had Whitney and Crosby and Malkin and they were a bunch of young guys ripping around having a blast in the NHL. And so Gersh and Nick Ryan, they put this together with the professors for a class and they did an exceptional job. Like they brought in a narrator, a legit narrator in, and they did an incredible job. It was awesome. Unfortunately for me, that was my senior year. So I suffered a head injury in January, so I didn't play. I wasn't even, I wasn't in the mix too much at that point when they were making it, but unreal. And in fact, funny enough, Corey Gersh ended up he's been working with the Rangers in multimedia and film for the past 10, 12 years. And so, it was one of those things that was something he was passionate about. And he was given the opportunity to kind of explore that passion and came up with that. And then there he is doing that type of work for the New York Rangers. And he continues to this day. But that was a lot of fun. It was cool to see. It was just a really well executed, well planned, well executed program. And if, I think I'm in there a bit, but my hair was certainly a lot longer and I looked a lot younger, but I may have had a fro back then. I got to check that out.
You
But
definitely did. I
I
saw
did,
you
eh?
after the game against us, your coach is giving like a post-game speech and you're there in your suit.
Yeah.
So like now that you've told me you didn't play because of concussion, because like during the thing I'm looking for your number. I'm like, where's 23? Like I gotta try to find this guy. You know what I mean? I'm watching, and not there. And then I see the guy in the back of the fro. So now that you brought up with it, that was you. But it
That's
was always
right.
cool for me. Like that stuff always fascinated me because it was like cool to see other programs and what they had. Like cool to
Yeah.
see behind the scenes. Cool to see your dressing room. Like I'm a big guy. I love seeing dressing rooms, like goalie gear style too. Like seeing Corey stuff and then the other goalie there.
Groups.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was just cool to see. And yeah, as I said, you're ahead of their time. We tried to duplicate it the next year and I think we had 8 episodes. But you guys did it first, so that'll forever be your claim to fame in the D3. But
That's right.
after Geneseo, I was curious if you ever had thought of trying pro and stuff, but I think with your head injury and stuff, that might have put a close on it. But there's a little gap here where I'm not sure what you ended up doing. You obviously went to Colgate as I believe a volunteer assistant coach in 15, 16. But between the years of 2012 summertime to, you know,
Yeah.
2015 summer, like what were you doing? Were you doing a normal job or were you just bouncing around? Like what were you doing? I guess I would say that's the only way to say it.
Yeah, wild card. Not again, a bit of a wild card path here again. Seems to be a theme. I was doing some tree planting in northern British Columbia to save money. And something I wanted to do and something that's always been important to me is just the world's a big world and there's all sorts of different people out there and different ways of doing things. And I've always been fascinated by the world and different countries and different cultures. And so I wanted to go check it out. So took a complete left turn from hockey there for a little bit, for a year at least. And I saved money up tree planting, then saved a bunch of money, and then I jumped on a plane, a one-way ticket to Bangkok, Thailand, and flew out there. And I ended up backpacking around on my own for about 7, 8 months through Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and then into China. spending about 6, 7 weeks in each of those countries, and just me and my backpack, and just taking it in and meeting great folks, and just a really, really incredible experience. Wow, that was something else. I can't wait to do it again, frankly. And then while I was out there, I thought teaching is something that I've always been passionate about, and I love geography and I love the world. So I was like, I'm going to be a geography professor. Let's go. And so when I remember I was in Laos, I was in Vientiane, Laos, which is the capital of Laos. I applied to various different geography departments in Canada. And then was accepted to York University, just north of Toronto there. And so after the backpacking adventure was wrapped up, I remember flying from Guangzhou, China to Miami, Florida for my cousin's wedding, which was hilarious. And then I was back home and enrolled into York University's Graduate Geography Master of Arts program. And then I ended up doing that for 2 years. And that's a whole other thing we can get into. I ended up studying, my master's thesis was on the geography of elite hockey player production in British Columbia, over 100, from I forget what it was, but early 1900s to 2002, and just looking at, the evolution of where the elite players that were born in British Columbia, where they came from and why over the course of that 100 years, just to gain a sense of what goes into it. And that was a great experience. I loved that. And at the same time, in my second year, Andrew, I ended up, I wanted to get into coaching a little bit. I had a bit of an itch, and I ended up coaching a midget A, the North Toronto midget A team in North Toronto. And that was an insanely great experience. Incredible folks. Elliot Shift and Woody were Herman Woody were the other two coaches, and myself. And it turns out we had a wagon. I had no idea. I just volunteered. I called this guy. It turns out our team was a wagon. We got a couple kids from the AAA organization, because they weren't drafted, and that was a big deal. So they wanted to play with their buddies. And we had an incredible year. We ended up winning the Ontario Hockey Federation Midget A Championship. And yeah, it wasn't even about winning that. It was just a great experience, great group of kids. I got to run practice at the North Toronto Arena, and got to see some incredible barns. GTA's got some classic memorial rinks. Like, wow. I loved that. It was a low-key, unreal part of the whole experience. That Scarborough rink is sick. But anyways, and so that's kind of how I did that. And then I defended my master's thesis, and my second year of doing my master's, I came to a point, am I going to apply for a PhD to really pursue work in the academy as a professor? My wife was like, Steph, like, you love coaching. Like, you should look into coaching. I'm like, well, can I do that for a living? Like, how does that work? And so I started going down that road, and started to make some calls and see what I can do in the coaching world. But that's how I filled that gap. A bit of a wild card route, but some incredible years for me. That year in overseas backpacking, you learn a lot of skills. But also just in doing that master's at York University, it's an entirely different population of people. It's not the dressing room anymore. And that was really healthy for me. I met some incredible folks, and I'm still in contact to this day. In fact, I was just emailing with my master's thesis advisor about 2.5 weeks ago. So it was a really great 3 years for me there. And then I got into the coaching world, but that's kind of what I was doing there.
Well, you really filled the gap, I would say. And now we all know what you were doing. But it's very true. Like, a lot of people always recommend to people who are graduating from university, like, hey, take a leap year or whatever. Like, go have a year for yourself, travel, do whatever you feel like doing before you get into the work world or whatever you maybe have got a degree in. And you obviously did that. Like, traveling the world, backpacking would have been crazy experience. Some of these countries, I'm sure you were just eyes open going through them. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I'd be backpacking. Like, I'd be a little scared to be doing it, but it sounds like you enjoyed it. You're here now, so you survived. And then, yeah, like bringing up the rinks in Toronto, like anytime you're going to a rink in the Greater Toronto area and you see memorials in the name,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know you are seeing a good one, because there's some history to that. That thing's been built for 70 years, and I think like Oakville has the one of the rinks is a memorial too. When you go in there, it's the kind of the old style and stuff like that. So that made me laugh. And obviously your team was good too, which looks good on the coaching resume. 1 year coaching, championship. How are you? Um,
Good
yeah, so
players make good coaches. Good players
exactly.
make good coaches, and we were loaded. Those AAA guys, we were loaded.
Good GMing. But yeah, so after that, your wife mentioned to you, or your girlfriend at the time mentioned to you, saying, "Hey, you have a passion for coaching. Like you should try to do this." And you even said to yourself, like, can I make a living doing this? So, um, I believe you ended up at Colgate your first year as a volunteer assistant.
Yeah.
Um, that means not getting paid. You're doing this just out of the goodness of your heart. Anyone who knows, especially in today's world, you have to make money some way. But how did that opportunity come about for you? And how did you convince, yourself and maybe your girlfriend at the time or wife that, hey, this is a good idea and this could lead to something where I can make a living being a coach?
Yeah, those are great questions, and those were such important pivotal moments in my life because you're making decisions. And um, my wife, she's incredibly supportive, like not normal. Very lucky. I'm very, very lucky. And when it came time to decide what my next moves were, I caught wind. So I mentioned earlier that my wife's sister played at Colgate, and so she was playing at Colgate at the time, and she caught wind that Colgate was looking for a volunteer ops director of ops, and so I said, hey, I'll call the head coach. I didn't know anyone in the women's world whatsoever, and so I called Greg Fargo, who was the head coach at the time at Colgate, and within about 5 minutes of that initial conversation, I was like, I like this guy. Um, they like it just there was something that like I don't know what it was. I was in my apartment at Spring Street, right on Avenue Road in St. Clair, West Toronto, calling Greg Fargo, who was in Hamilton, New York, and just something was sparked there. And hey, we got an operations position. When you're visiting your girlfriend in Utica, that's where my wife's from. How about you come down to Colgate? 'Cause it's about 35 minutes away. We'll sit down, we'll grab lunch, we'll have a conversation. And so that's what I did. And I left that lunch and I agreed right there. I said, hey, I don't want to I'm not interested in operations. And if anyone who knew me said that, they'd be like, no, he's not interested in operations. But I'd love to coach. Coaching, I want to be a coach. That's what I want to do. And I was passionate about it. And I said, I would love to be your volunteer coach. And I'd done a lot of legwork and I'd looked into other trajectories of other head coaches, and it became fairly clear to me, like Nate Lehman, for instance, he volunteered his first year. And then I started to just all these guys volunteered. And I said, well, they're pretty good coaches. That seems like a wonderful path, and I'm all in. And again, I had support. The support at the time was my girlfriend, but not only that, her family, and her family is an incredible Central New York hockey family. Four of the five of them played Division One in the ECAC at the Division One level, and it was a hockey family, and they totally understood. And between my girlfriend, my own parents, and my girlfriend's parents, because we'd been together like 8 years at that point, right? So they're like, you got to do this. Like this is for you. Like you have to try this. And so to have that support, it served as that like push. And I dove in and I was all in. And I told Greg, I said, hey, I'm all in. Yeah, I'm not in a volunteer. I'm all in. I want to be at every meeting. I want to be on every road trip. I leave the office when you leave the office. I get there when you get there. I'm all in. This is what I want to do. This is what I love. And that was my compass. And it was never like I'm not making any money. We survived on my wife's entry level grade 6 teaching job. But we make it work. You just make it work because if you know what you want in life, you go and get it. And so that was an incredible stroke of luck to land underneath Greg, and Josh Skiba was here, and Sophie Leclerc as well were on staff. And my gosh, that was I got real lucky there, and ended up becoming three of my best friends. Greg to this day is a best friend of mine. We chatted for 2 hours on the phone 2 days ago in the morning. And he went off to pursue his professional coaching career with New York, and I was fortunate to kind of to land here as a head coach at Colgate. But that's how I got into it. And funny enough, I proposed to my wife that summer heading into that volunteer year. Doesn't have a job. Prospects are a little bleak. And I'll never forget the day I was told I got the assistant coach full-time job was 2 weeks out from my wedding the following summer. And it was just a really amazing full circle moment. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be on staff with these guys, they're coming to my wedding. I didn't even know them, but I invited them anyways. It all worked out. But yeah, that's kind of the story of how I landed at Colgate, and I've been here now I'll be heading to my 11th year.
It's crazy to first of all to hear those like full circle stories and like starting as a volunteer assistant, now head coach. I laughed when you told me you proposed before that starting that volunteer year because like there's so many like TV shows or movies where it's like the guy with no job proposes and
Right. That's
the father-in-law is like no, like you get a job first kind of thing. But
that's
it's
right.
it's great to have a supportive wife who obviously maybe too over supportive as you said, but she believed in you and obviously it paid off. And um one thing I will say to talk about Nate Lehman, because I had him on this podcast. I
Great.
got 28 minutes with him. He was busy, gave me 28 minutes, and I have to say, like talking to that guy, my best friend played for him at Union. That was probably 28 of the most informative minutes
Wow.
and like inspiring minutes because as you said, like he started as a volunteer, how he looks at the game, how he looks at opportunities, like as it was short episode, but it was literally like wow, like you left it like I think I asked 5 questions the whole time, but it just he talks and knows how to get his point across, get his message across. So I'm sure you doing the research, seeing hey, so and so Nate Lehman did this, like why can't I do it? And obviously, as you said, you're going into been over 10 years there, and it's a tremendous feat.
It's not, I think it's so important to point at it. Like Newsy, who was in Detroit, he just got let go, unfortunately, but he was a D3 guy. He was a volunteer guy. Like if you really start digging around and you start taking note of where some of these coaches got their start, like they were passionate about coaching and teaching. It's what they wanted to do. They knew that. So they were just excited for any opportunity that came across their desk and they jumped at it. And then they were good where they were. And then they just continue to be good where they are. And I just think that's so important. Like you just want a platform to be able to express what you love to do and give yourself an opportunity to get those reps, and then you just keep moving forward. Oftentimes we're sitting around waiting for that big opportunity. Well, perfection's the enemy of good. And so we got to get out there and you got to get those reps. You need that platform so you can start doing what you love to do.
And it also proves, I think, like someone like yourself and Nate Lehman, like we
I'm not
all
Nate Newman. Whoa, that's
no, no,
insane.
no, 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 no. Relax. What I'm saying is, like, at the end of the day, like the reason you do this, you have a passion for it, but it also like it can pays you a salary. You can have a great life, a great family life. But when you start out like this, making minimum or making nothing, and you talking about how going into the coach's office being like, I'm full in. When you show up to the rink, I'm there. When you leave, I'm there. I'm going on every away trip. I'm
Yeah.
there every day with you. It also proves to whether it's people in your organization or people around because the hockey world is small and you'll see tons of coaches and your coaches will talk about you to them.
Yeah.
It shows you're willing to do the work and you're not just intrigued of doing the work by the money. Like you really have a passion for the game. And those people normally go on, like yourself and Nate Lehman, go on to have successful careers and also longevity because that is one thing in hockey and professional sports is having the longevity to be somewhere for such a long time. It's more common in college, I will say that, but it still is a tremendous feat to say, hey, I've been somewhere for 10 years.
Yeah. 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 And this is where I want to be for another 10, if not more. I agree. My favorite player growing up was Joe Sakic, Burnaby Joe. Um, my favorite player growing up. And then once then my next favorite players growing up, Daniel and Henrik Sedin were my idols. Stevie Y, guys that played their entire careers for one organization. I think longevity signals a lot. I do. And I just have a tremendous amount of respect. Like Coach Schaefer at Cornell, he just retired after 25, 26, or 27 years. We were just down in Naples at our NCAA coaches convention, and he was honored. And it was just, I was sitting there and I was like, wow, what a career. He's at Cornell for that long. That type of longevity, like good, like that's, yeah, I just have so much respect for that. And maybe it is because those were my favorite players growing up, but, um, it's something I certainly hope to achieve in my career.
One important thing I wanted to ask you is, and I'm sure there's many coaches out there or many people who are interested in getting into coaching, but might be nervous. And I'll explain why. How was the transition for you from coming from the men's side of obviously playing and then coaching minor hockey in Toronto there to the women's side? Like obviously it's not the same in terms of you're different with two types of human beings. Maybe some different rules in recruiting and stuff as you mentioned with Colgate there. But how was the transition for you? And like, do you have any maybe tips for anyone who might have been involved in the women's game and is making the jump to the men's side and making the jump to women's, or vice versa?
Yeah. Um, I always had a teacher's bent. I just, that's how I don't know. It's just, I love to teach, and I was super excited about the women's game because I viewed it as a game in its infancy. It was a young game. The first world championship is 1990 or 91 in Ottawa. Stanley Cup, first time it's awarded, it's 1893 or 1894. So it was a game in its infancy, and that excited me because I thought that that presented a lot of opportunity to have impact. And I fell in love with it the first camp I worked at Colgate in the summer of 2015, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for coaches to get in and to get a platform to work on your teaching skills, to get those reps, to learn how to communicate in front of a group. These women are incredibly motivated. They're elite, world-class athletes, and they're determined, and it's just a real privilege to be able to work with them. They want to learn. They want information. They want to know what they can do better. They want to build awareness to their own games, and so it's an absolute pleasure to work with these young women, and with everything that's going around in and around the game right now, going on in and around the game with the PWHL and the expansion and upcoming draft. And we had 6 players last year. 6 of our graduates played in the PWHL. It was unreal to turn on the tube and watch them rip around and living out their dream, the dream that I wanted for myself. It was. It's incredible. And I think getting involved in the women's game for a young coach is such an incredible opportunity to gain a platform to get those reps coaching and to build those teaching skills. It's been a dream job for me. I absolutely love it. And I feel so fortunate to have that opportunity to impact the people and the players in the way that I get to here.
And probably a big reason too, like why your women's program at Colgate has had like so much success. Like every year, you guys are a very competitive team, and from doing some research, I noticed obviously 2018 you were an assistant then, but you guys ended up going to the NCAA finals, I believe, and then the Frozen Four again in 2024. So it must be also satisfying for you to see all the hard work you're putting into making the program better every day, and also seeing these athletes get rewarded for their hard work. You're getting, because at the end of the day, like, doesn't matter if you're on the men's side or on the women's side, like, we're all competitive people. That's why we're athletes. We want to win, and that's why we play the sport, because we love it. So it must be, like, as I said, satisfying for you to see these girls being able to have the success they have. And then, as you mentioned, some of them have gone on to go play in the PWHL, the NHL of the women's side.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, if 14-year-old Steph knew that this was where I'd be sitting and this is what I'd be doing, he'd be pretty fired up. He would take it. Absolutely. It is a true honor to be able to work with these young women, and just incredibly motivated. They push you. We got to be on the cutting edge of things. Like, we got to be on top of it. That's the expectation. And so to have that opportunity, it's outstanding. I don't know how else to say it. It's what I wanted to do. Here I am. And I pinch myself. I truly do, because You're absolutely right. It's a real honor and a lot of fun and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, right? And we come together. You have 4 years with the athletes to help them elevate their game, to help them develop as people. Those years are such critical years for young folks. 18 to 22, you're experiencing more autonomy than maybe you have in the past. Those are meaningful years, and to be able to be a part of their support system to help them through those years, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows, as I'm sure you know from your experience. There are those times where things aren't going well, and to be able to be that pillar of support for these young women, it's a dream job, and they're incredible, and I consider myself very lucky, and I can't wait. I can't wait for work tomorrow. I was just having this conversation with a friend. We grabbed coffee. He was a football coach, and in the coaching world, in school, I don't know what this says about me, but back in the day, like elementary school, high school, whatever, college, it's Sunday. You wake up, it's Sunday, and you're just like, oh man, it's Sunday. School tomorrow. you know, like school tomorrow. And like I don't like in coaching, that doesn't exist. There's no Sunday. I get to go to the rink tomorrow, park out front, walk up those beautiful stairs at Clat 65, walk on the concourse into my office. There's no Sunday in what I do. And that's a pretty privileged position to be in, I would say.
There's no Sunday scaries on the coaching side because, a lot of times I'd be waking up at Oswego, potentially hungover, and also realizing that I have a lot of homework to do today that I
That's
need
right.
done for tomorrow that I haven't pushed off because we had games all weekend. Then we went out with the boys. So, no,
That's right.
you brought a lot of things in perspective, and that's so true. I'm always curious to talk to, someone like yourself because being a head coach at Colgate, you're also the general manager, like just to put it into simple terms. So. Given your program's success and the competitiveness that they seem to have every year, what types of athletes are you looking to recruit each season? And obviously, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different requirements. Like there's obviously on the sports side, there's on the academic side. We talked about it off camera too, where it's hard to get people to transfer to Colgate because of the credit transfer, not transferring properly and everything like that. But simply like what type of athletes are you looking to recruit at Colgate?
Yeah. To keep it fairly simple, I think when we begin the recruiting process, it's a little unique. So we can't talk to prospective recruits in grade 10 until June 15th. So about a month away, just over a month away till that window opens. So in the meantime, it's about, we're calling coaches, we're doing our digging, we're learning about the players. One thing that is foundational to our approach here is I want to gain a clear sense of how a certain recruit fell in love with the game. I love those stories. I want to gain a sense of how did they fall in love with the game? What's their relationship currently with the game? And, for us, we love rink rats. That's what we love. I was a rink rat. Our staff, we were rink rats. We were hockey nerds. We love players and athletes that love the game, just love the game. It gives them joy. It gives them joy. They love to play. There's a burning desire internally for them to play the game. And with that, I always say we as a staff, we talk like we're interested in that player who wants to win the ball hockey game or road hockey game after school with their buddies because that matters to them because they're competitive. They want to win. For me, it was Patty Nelson. We were arch nemesis. It was always me against him. He was also a redhead too. So we'd go right at it. And like that mattered. Like we had to win that game in that cul-de-sac on Silverdale, and that goes on, that plays on all throughout Canada, the United States and over Europe. And so, we want to recruit players who love the game, have a deep love for the game and who are competitive. That puck over there, that's my puck. It's nothing personal, but it's my puck. I'm going to win that puck. And so I think those are two kind of higher level character traits that we do a lot of digging into to gain information and insight. Because over the course of 4 years, and this, Andrew, like it's not a straight line. It's not linear. There's ups and downs, and your relationship with the game needs to be healthy. It needs to give you juice, and because it's not always going your way, and it is hard. Maybe it's Thursday. Maybe it's November and we haven't seen the sun and it's raining out, and it's like I got an exam tomorrow. I got coach took me off the penalty kill the previous weekend. The walls are coming. They're coming in. They're falling in on me. And so that love for the game, that competitive desire, that helps in those moments. And frankly, that's I think there's a lot of different things we look at, but to really distill things and boil it down, those two things are super important to our program.
Yeah, I mean you're right. Like there's no sweet answer I can give here to expand on it. Like you want competitive athletes at on your team, whichever level you are, and who want to, come in every day, love the game, have a passion for it, want to get better, and like you said, whether it's the national championship game, whether it's a 3-on-3 scrimmage during a practice, or whether it's some team event where you're playing, volleyball or something outside, just a team building thing. Like you want people who want to win and get
Yeah.
pissed when they lose,
Yeah.
and do everything to,
Yeah.
I
That Super Bowl game matters.
oh it
Hey,
telling you, I think I lost some defensive relationships with my D when I was in
that's
those
right.
games. But
That's right. Yeah.
no, those are at the end of the day, you're in competitive sports, and that allows you to be your best, and obviously the team to have success too. So I think that that goes without saying. But yeah, I got one more for you here. Like it's been great
Awesome.
catching up with you. We got to go down memory lane there with the old D3 days. I'm happy to see both our programs are still prospering and doing really well. I always end the podcast with this one. I think it's good for the listeners to hear kind of different answers to it. But what is one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice you would give the younger generation out there? So if you're speaking to athletes, whether it's male or female, in their 16, 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, like what is one or multiple pieces of advice you would give them?
Yeah. A couple things that immediately come to mind is comparison's the thief of joy. I think it's tough. It's tough being a young person with they're inundated with all sorts of different media. They're seeing what all their buddies are doing, or they know what's going on in the world. They know when someone commits. They know this, that, and the other. Comparison is the thief of joy. Stop looking left and right. Focus on your own lane. Focus on your own journey, because it's going to be entirely unique. Because you as a person are like a fingerprint. You're entirely unique, and so the sooner you lean into who you are as a person, as a player, and lean into that and leverage that and only worry about that, I think that can bring a certain level of comfort and go for it. And I think that's so incredibly important. Secondly, I'll say this: like it's going to be hard. It's hard, and it's okay if it's hard. Whether it's your hockey journey or you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it is, things that are hard are worth pursuing. It is going to be hard. Like that's the one thing I can say with certainty. But that's not something to back away from. That's something to lean into and to dive into, because that's only going to lead to further growth within you as a person and as a player. And so the thing not to do is to pick up your bag and go to the team that's just down the road, because that grass, I tell you what, it's never going to be greener. Whether it is as a 15-year-old, you want to do it as a 20-year-old. Like if it's hard, that's okay. That's okay. Because hard things are good things are hard and they're worth having. So those are two things that kind of pop up in my mind right off the hop. And I just say, believe in yourself and go for it. If you want something, identify how to get it and then go and get it.
No, I definitely can relate to both those things you mentioned. But the one, as I said, the one that just stuck out to me is what you said about, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging, and that's going to, in the end, help you when you overcome it. You put the work ethic in, you go through it. It's going to make you a better, not just only athlete, but also a better person, and help you also be mentally stronger, be able to handle more adversity that comes at you. Because as you said, there's so much adversity thrown at us throughout our lives. It doesn't even matter if you're an athlete or not an athlete. And yeah, like focusing on you and yourself and kind of your path. Like you mentioned, social media today is everything. Like when we were growing up, it was, you had to go on that one website and like click the refresh to see like who committed where. And like, that
Right.
was like how you got your news. Like we didn't have the Instagrams and
Yeah.
the TikToks and all the even Twitter and stuff was kind of new. So like now that I feel like the young athletes are so overly not educated, but informed with all the information that's going on that they sometimes, it could lead to negative effects where we were just like, hey, this is my path. I'm putting my head down. I'm controlling what I can control, and wherever it leads me, it leads me. But yeah, I mean, I think you said it best. Like, not probably one of the better ways to end a podcast. I appreciate the advice. I appreciate you taking the time to go down memory lane with me, and obviously us catching up after all those years. Happy to not happy, but I would say, now knowing that you didn't play that game that was on the 24/7, now I can officially cross off that you probably didn't score on me that game, but maybe earlier in the year you got one on me. But no, man,
Doubtful. I didn't shoot. I didn't shoot. I mean, like I said, the Sedins are my favorite players. I was always looking for that extra pass. Drove my dad crazy. But yeah, I doubt I scored. I passed a lot though.
you were that guy that had a clear empty net and you'd rather have the apple, so you're waiting for somebody to catch up, and
That's right. That's
that's
right.
awesome. But
Yeah.
no, man, happy to see you stay involved in the game. Obviously, was very cool to hear about your backpacking story and how you went back to the game of hockey, got into coaching, and now obviously the success you've had at Colgate and building a very competitive program there. I'm happy to see it. Another D3 athlete that's gone on to bigger and better things, man. So we stay together there, we unite, and yeah, happy we could do this, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure, Andrew, and thank you for the service you provide to the game and giving back to the game in this way. Not only with Manheim, but this podcast is a excellent platform and opportunity for parents and athletes just to gain various different insights and perspectives. Because I bet you don't have one podcast that was the same as the other. So congratulations to you. All the best here. Have a wonderful summer, man. Really appreciate you reaching out and this was a blast. Thank you.
Appreciate the kind words again, 2 times in one podcast, man. Wow, lucky me. But yeah, have a good summer for you as well. And for those listening, if you're ever in the Hamilton, New York area, you want to go see a women's hockey game, get to Colgate there. Brand new arena of a couple of years. I can tell you, like by seeing pictures, looks great. The atmosphere would be great. Great hockey, as you mentioned, especially athletes from there going on to play in the PWHL after. Give them a follow on Instagram, social media, everything. And lastly, until next week, choose and ciao.